The audio compressor. You hear them used almost every day in film, music and TV. They're a staple and an unsung hero in most creative projects. They can often be the difference between an amateur and a professional sounding piece of audio. But what exactly are they, and where did they come from? A compressor, in the most simple terms, brings the highest and lowest levels of volume of an audio source closer together in real time. It's an incredibly simple concept with incredibly powerful results. But for such a simple sounding concept, there's a lot of mystery and speculation behind the conception of these units. It's well known that some of the earliest applications of the compressor were in AM radio and TV broadcasts. Siemens were believed to have created the first commercially available compressor, which was used at the Berlin Olympics in 1936. As far as I can tell, those units are now extinct completely. Wait, or was it Telefunken who made those? There are sources that say both. But before then it gets even fuzzier. Automatic level control, or automatic gain control units, were allegedly used for military radio transition in the early 20s, allowing signals to retain clarity over longer distances. The likelihood is that the military, both the US and Russian militaries receive credit for this, used an optical compressor, where an audio source is driven into a light bulb. The louder the audio source, the brighter the light bulb. This bulb is placed next to a photoresistor, a high-resistance semiconductor, which lowers its resistance when exposed to more light, and in turn controls the gain of an amp. This means that the amplified sound will receive less gain as it increases in volume. But who was making them? Well, it would appear that Western Electric and RCA were the only companies holding patents associated with audio all the way up into the 1940s. That makes them pretty good contenders. For a couple of years in the early 30s, there was a US government-mandated patent pool, which means the technology was licensed with ease. Collins Radio successfully challenged those patents for parts of their tube design, which allegedly kicked them into tube manufacturing. Meanwhile, RCA would be handing out licenses to businesses building receivers and not transmitters. The sad fact is, none of us really know where these magical boxes came from, or where they were first used. But we do know what they are and how to use them. We've already looked at the optical compressor, but there are another 3 main types commonly used today. The tube compressor, renowned for slower attack and release times and a distinct colorization attributed to that vintage sound, which has proven virtually impossible to replicate digitally. The FET, or Field Effect Transistor Compressor, which attempts to replicate that tube sound with the ability to dial in much more responsive attack and release settings and more reliable internals. And the VCA, Voltage Controlled Amplifier, a generally cheaper solid-state unit with minimal colorization and controversially compared as the digital side in the ever-raging digital versus analog wars. Then we have the settings of these unit types, which can dramatically affect their processing. A hard knee compressor won't touch your signal until it reaches a certain threshold, where a soft knee compressor affects your signal gradually as you approach its set threshold. A peak compressor holds a strict volume limit, crushing any signal above its threshold with no exceptions, where an RMS compressor eases the signal towards its set threshold. A side-chained compressor will treat its signal according to an external source, so a compressed bass guitar signal, side-chained to a kick drum, will duck every time the kick drum is triggered. Finally, on the front of your compressor, you'll find, commonly, the following controls. In order: input, to set the level of gain added to or subtracted from the source. Threshold, to set the level at which the compressor kicks in. Ratio, the amount of gain reduction on the signal past the threshold. Attack, how fast the compressor responds to a signal once it's past the threshold. Release, how long it takes the compressor to lay off the signal once it's come below the threshold. And output, how much gain is added or subtracted from the audio now that it's been compressed. And that's it. Understanding this will allow your application of compression to become more appropriate in a mix or creative project, as opposed to a simple volume control. A digital compressor with a slow attack and quick release can make for a very aggressive percussive tone for heavy guitars, drums, or extreme vocals, where a quicker attack, slower release will allow smoother dynamics for ambient or softer instruments. Obviously, there are no black and white rules when it comes to applications, which is the beauty of these units. Some tube compressors are added minimally to a signal chain simply to colour the tone, which is actually compressed earlier or later in the signal chain by a transparent digital compressor. We know that radio can greatly benefit from compression. For example, you know when a DJ speaks over the outro to a song and the song's volume dips a little bit? That's audio ducking, a compressor sidechained to the DJ's mic with a fast attack and slow release which allows clarity in his voice over the music. This would also benefit live broadcasts of music, sports, theatre and stand-up, where audience noise could be controlled easily to be loud without obstructing the desired content. The compressor is a very common and powerful tool in audio production, in pretty much any medium. If you're a songwriter, filmmaker, or DJ, you absolutely should spend some time playing with compressors and finding out how they can enhance your media towards that professional sound. We don't know much about their origin, but we're very grateful they're here. Hey, thank you for sticking around for the end of this video. I've been having a great time making these things, and having a few people along for the ride is all the better. So if you want some songwriting tips and tricks, you want to nerd out about some gear, or just hear some new songs, stick around, we'll have some fun. Thanks.
Step away from me now. I can't